Hello, welcome. This is part of a series on the first 3 days of creation described in Genesis 1 in the Bible. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I recommend you watch the video on the first day first. Let's dive into the second day of creation. We'll briefly explore the separation of the waters and what that can show us about orientation, gradation, and elevation. This will build on some of the ideas in part 1. Genesis 1, 6-8. And God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." And God made the expanse, and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse. And it was so. And God called the expanse heaven. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. This passage introduces definite directional references of above and below. We read in a previous verse of the Spirit hovering over the water, but not with any fixed reference point. The world is still chaos and void. Here, we're given the firmament, or the expanse, maintaining the separation between the upper and lower waters. The upper and lower division of reality provides a vertical axis. This affords the possibility of orientation and direction. So with a definite upper and lower boundary, points of perspective exist relative both to each other and to their environment. On the first day, we simply held the concept of self and other, here and there. On the second day, that relationship includes a directional evaluation. Instead of just here and there, we now have down here and up there. Orientation adds judgment to perception. Comparison becomes relevant, not just comparing self with others, but with the shift in our own position over time. There's a recognition of whether we are going up, falling down. We are allowed meaningful exploration now. We can go somewhere. We can discover hope and aspiration in the possibility of better or different that a new position can offer us. Perception and identity gain a landmark in the vertical axis. When we're able to judge our own position against fixed outer reference points, we're able to measure growth. When our environment changes as we change, the feedback helps us evaluate our journey. How is it here? How was it there? How could this be if I were over there? This aspect of dimension frees us from the strict binary presence and absence of the first day. Now there's a gradual shift available. Many points extended over the journey between above and below. So think of a dimmer switch added to an electrical circuit. We have not only light or dark, but an amount of light. We have lighter and darker. The spectrum of value descends between the waters from above to below. As the light passes through more and more material, finding its way downward, it is dimmed until there is only darkness of the uttermost depths. While the waters above are glorious, the waters below eventually become filled with the dead. A circuit that drops completely and goes to ground dies, like we end up in the ground when we die. A circuit with more force behind it is higher voltage, higher amperage. Something being high is empowered in a way. We could say that it is glorified or exalted. For something to be high, it has to be lifted up. There's a driving power behind it that becomes apparent when we see it above us. So, for a brief example, imagine a professional baseball game. Ground ball, base hit. Next batter Fly ball going long over the fence. The crowd is lifted up. All hands are pulled into the air, and voices are raised in cheering. The batter makes a complete circuit, even drives his teammate home. When the ball is struck, there is a sense of anticipation as we witness a connection. The ground ball is like a circuit that doesn't have much voltage. Without enough voltage, the power isn't able to push through the resistance in the material. This is like the batter who can't move past first base because his hit doesn't overcome the resistance of the defenders. His ball is grounded. He may even get out, like the light stays out in a failed or grounded circuit. With the proper amount of power applied to the circuit, there is enough voltage to overcome any resistance and activate whatever is in the path. This is like the home run hitter. There is physical power in the bat striking the ball. There is also another kind of power as well. We can observe the fans watching in awe as the ball soars through the heavens above them, driven by the motivation of the batter. Ball flying is representing not only the single act of swinging, but also God-given talent, years of disciplined effort, the blessing of opportunities accepted, the necessity of constant sacrifices made, organization, teamwork. All of these forms of effort go into lifting that ball into the air. The hit is a culmination of a wide span of efforts over time, put together and distilled into a single moment, witnessed by a crowd. The ball carried high in the sky holds all of this energy within it, and we can actually see this. We can see all of this driving input released when the ball comes down on the back side of the fence. The power put in the ball is released in the explosion of the fans. All the energy put into being able to hit well is expressed as appreciation for hitting well. There's a common phrase that sin is missing the mark. In elite baseball, the mark is spinning and curving at 100 miles an hour. A person hitting the mark is a symbolic expression of righteousness that we intuitively admire and celebrate. So one more example of what I'm trying to show is that is in two men fighting each other. So imagine two men, they each have a rock. No visible difference between the men or the rocks. But so who would win? We can't know. It's arbitrary. We don't have a differentiating metric to evaluate them by. We need some unique quality to judge between the two, measure the difference. So now apply the second day principle of higher and lower. Imagine a tower. The invader standing with his rock at the bottom of the tower. The defender holding his rock on top of the tower. Now who would win? Clearly, the elevated man has an advantage. He can simply let go of his stone and move it with more force than the lower man can throw his stone with all of his effort. The higher stone is filled with the power of the heights. The work of lifting it up is still in it until it is sent down again. In a way, it is exalted. Something exalted is seen more easily. It reaches further. It's empowered in its actions. It's charged. It's charged with the energy from being lifted up. It's also charged with a purpose. There is a reason it was lifted up. A purpose for its place on high. Lifting up is an act of will, and we lift things up to glorify and enable their function. For the stone on the wall to achieve its purpose, it has to be dropped. It has to reach towards the ground and spend the energy invested in it destroying the invader. If something cannot come back down, it is considered lost and a waste, like a balloon escaping the circus. A thing that is held high is a potential good, but it must come down again to be a functional good. If a functional good is disproven, if the idea cannot land, then all of the glory it associated with it is recognized as an illusion. And that kind of disillusionment is like a statue being torn down or a palace burned. Things happening in the world right now. It's tempting to think of the upward sense of a thing as being inherently better, as opposed to the downward sense. It's clear in our language that there's a natural upward aspiration in positive statements like, things are looking up, or keep your head up. And this is opposed to the negative feeling down, or even depressed, pressed down. In a broader sense, however, the lower is necessary for reality. For us to know our salvation, he descended from heaven. Christ was lowered in the incarnation, descending into the material. He demonstrated the potential glory available to simple material when it is in right relationship to the highest ideals. Thank you very much for your attention. This is part of a series on the first 3 days of creation. If you found this informative or interesting at all, please lower your finger on your mouse button with the cursor on the button. A comment or click is appreciated. Thank you.